I mean, I agree with your assessment of that danger 100%. That's another reason why I think that we have to help Ukraine stop Putin now, because if he keeps going into Ukraine and then he invades a NATO country and we decide that we've got to go up against him.
Is there any evidence that he would do that? That he would invade a NATO country?
I don't think he'll stop.
You don't think so?
I think, dude, he's been in power for a long time for a leader of Russia. I think that I watched that Tucker Carlson interview, right?
Yeah.
And that history lesson that he delivered at the beginning, everyone was like, what the fuck is he talking about? And Tucker just looked baffled. I got it. I actually thought I'm getting an insight into Putin's motivations and the way that he sees himself, which is a historic figure. He sees himself as someone who's going to restore a Russian empire. He spends all day in the halls of the Kremlin with portraits of Ivan the Terrible and Catherine the Great, right? And I think that he's seeing himself as not the leader of a free country, certainly, but as someone who's going to restore a Russian empire. So no, I absolutely do not think he will stop with Ukraine. No way. So then if he doesn't, and then he invades a NATO country and we go up against him, man, those documents leaked recently from Russia that were showing what their lines were for when they would start using quote-unquote tactical nukes. And, I think he'd do it. I don't think he will.
What are the lines?
Well, they were whatever. If they started to lose a certain percentage of troops, I can't recall the specifics, but they were shockingly liberal on when they would start to use tactical nukes on the battlefield in Europe.
Jesus.
If they started to have certain percentages of battlefield losses, we're not in the current situation, but as they go further into Ukraine, or in a war that came into Russian territory. So I just think, we should stop this shit now. This shit being Putin.
Is it possible?
I think it is possible. I think it's possible to essentially let him have.
What's this, Jamie?
Oh yeah.
Criteria for a potential nuclear response range from an enemy incursion on Russian territory to more specific triggers, such as the destruction of 20% of Russia's strategic ballistic missile submarines. This is the first time we've seen documents like this reported in the public domain, said Alexander how do you say that? Gaboyev?
Your guess is a good one.
Director of Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center in Berlin. They show that the operational threshold for using nuclear weapons is pretty low if the desired result can't be achieved through conventional means. Russia's tactical nuclear weapons, which can be delivered by land or sea-launched missiles from an aircraft, are designed for limited battlefield use in Europe and Asia, as opposed to the larger strategic weapons intended to target U.S. modern tactical warheads can still release significantly more energy than the weapons dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima in 1945. Although the files date back 10 years or more, experts claim they remain relevant to current Russian military doctrine. The documents were shown to the FT by Western sources.
So to answer your question, I think that, the territory that Putin has taken, and again, also, just like we didn't back him up after the security assurances that we, the U.S., gave Ukraine in 1994, 2014, right, there was that revolution in Ukraine, and in response, Putin invaded Crimea with the little green man, the guys that didn't have an insignia. And the U.S. State Department went to, and Ukraine was going to fight. And the U.S. State Department went to Kyiv and was like, whoa, chill out. Just let him have Crimea. We'll make sure he stops there. Let's not escalate things, okay? So we gave him our word a second time, and then we broke it. So to answer your question, I think that territory that Putin has seized, my impression from talking with a lot of Ukrainians in recent weeks has been that they feel like Ukraine could still be Ukraine without that territory. Like the people, basically, you could have a 3-week period where people could either move there if they want to be Russians, or they can leave if they want to be Ukrainians. And then you could have a kind of a North Korea, South Korea, DMZ kind of situation. I think that's probably the best possible outcome right now. But even to do that, again, we've got to properly arm the Ukrainians so that they can stop Putin from moving further into their country and actually taking territory that they could not live without.
So do you think ultimately he plans on taking all of Ukraine?
Yes, 100%. I think he's 100%. I mean, it was when I was in Kyiv and I went to how close the fighting actually got to the capital city, it was shocking how close it was. Like that town Bucha, where there was all those atrocities committed. I mean, there's this one. I saw this one this like massive graveyards of like automobiles, and what happened was people were trying to get out of this town as the Russian troops, because they invaded from Belarus, from the north, and they came in and they're trying to go like lightning strike on Kyiv. And they got within, I think, 10, 12 kilometers of the city. And then they got stopped because the guys started blowing bridges. Special forces started blowing bridges and hitting them with javelins and stuff, and they actually stopped them. Like, incredibly brave fighting. But there was this one I came across this just pile of just hundreds of blown up cars. And I asked the locals about it, and some of them have been like painted now with, sunflowers and, Slava Ukrainia, glory to Ukraine. And artists are trying to make this less sort of macabre. But what it was when the Russians invaded 2 years ago, like hundreds of families piled in their cars, and there was one road out of town, but it was a trap. And the Russians cut it off on both sides and then methodically, using tanks, blew up these cars full of civilians. Just brutal shit. And I know there's like brutal shit on all sides in all wars.
Yeah.
But to see it firsthand like that, to talk to people that saw that happen it's tough. So.